The person needs to be over the age of 14, and we need to be satisfied that the person is not going to be rendered stateless by the removal of their Australian citizenship. The way in which it operates, and again, Mr Newman and others frankly should have this basic comprehension, but the way in which it operates is that there is a Citizenship Loss Board made up of Deputy Secretaries from several departments, including my Department of Home Affairs, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the AG's department, obviously very significant input as well from ASIO, from the Australian Federal Police and from others as well. So the Citizenship Loss Board looks at each of these individual cases. There have been 12 now where people have, through their own actions, seen their, and breaking of their allegiance to our country, seen their citizenship loss take place. So the Citizenship Loss Board examines all of the available information. It might be holdings in relation to an individual in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan, for example. They will go through each element of that case, and they then provide information to me, and I can determine as the Minister for Home Affairs whether or not I want to accept that or not. And in the case of Mr Prakash, clearly we did, because as we allege, he is involved in a fairly serious way in terrorist type activity in the Middle East. So that's the way in which the process works. That process is obviously informed by legal advice from the Australian Government Solicitor or AGD. The advice to the government in relation to Mr Prakash, as I'm advised, is clear in relation to his Fijian citizenship. Now, Fiji was notified of this case before it was made public, and we will continue to work with the Fijians. But the legal advice, as I'm advised, is clear in relation to the operation of law in Fiji, and we'll work through that. So that's the way in which it operates, and hopefully that provides you with some clarity. Now, I've been Minister for Home Affairs just over 12 months. I couldn't understand why Mr Shorten hadn't appointed Mr Newman, my shadow, as the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs. But it's abundantly clear today. I mean, Mr Newman was reckless at best, likely incompetent, and clearly doesn't have any comprehension of the process or the way in which these laws operate. It is the case that when Labor were in power, there was no such law to strip terrorists of their Australian citizenship, and we have introduced that law, and now 12 people have gone from being Australian citizens to having lost their Australian citizenship. So again, some of the comments today by Mr Newman are frankly embarrassing, and it's no wonder that he hasn't been appointed, frankly, the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs. So Mr Shorten needs to say, I think today, whether or not he's got confidence in Mr Newman and whether or not he's going to appoint Mr Newman as the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs. We're 6 months away from an election. It's still unclear as to whether or not Mr Shorten would appoint in his government, if he's elected, whether he would appoint Mr Newman to be the Minister for Home Affairs. And this is a fair point to make. It's a fair question to ask, and Mr Shorten should answer it. All right, any questions?
Are you saying categorically then that Prakash is Fijian?
Well, I'm saying that the legal advice available to the government, based on all of the intricate detail and fact of this particular matter, is that Mr Prakash is, by operation of law, a citizen of Fiji. And as I say, the Fijians were advised some time ago, and we've been working with the Fijians, and we'll continue that relationship. Fiji, as you know, is an incredibly important partner on many levels. We respect the Fijians. We understand them, in a way that few other countries do, because of the history that we have together, and we'll continue to work closely with the Fijians. But the legal advice, as I'm advised, provided by the Government Solicitor to the Citizenship Loss Board, leaves us no doubt in relation to Mr Prakash's citizenship. Now, there is an appeal process that's available to Mr Prakash, and that's up to him as to whether or not he avails himself of that process. Ultimately, these matters can be tested in the court, which is as it should be, and courts can decide these matters, but the legal advice that we've relied upon, as I'm advised, is clear. The other point to make is that Mr Prakash is sitting in a Turkey jail at the moment. He's been there for some time. I think from memory the jail term was between 5 and 10 years. The Americans and the Brits and others, as I'm advised, have an interest in him as well. Prakash is not coming anywhere near our part of the world anytime soon. He's going to be in a jail cell for a very long time, and so he should, because he's been involved in some very serious criminal activity.
Is that advice based purely?
Peter Dutton there, the Home Affairs Minister, very firmly standing by his decision that the Islamic State member Neil Prakash should be stripped of his Australian citizenship. Queries were made after Fiji, a minister in Fiji was quoted as saying that he didn't have citizenship there and that wouldn't be able to go there either. But clearly, Peter Dutton checking all the facts. The Citizenship Loss Board went through the case and recommended it could happen, and Peter Dutton says yes, that's what he is sticking with.